I refuse to measure my self-worth by the false standards of a corrupt world. I know who I am.
I don't know if you know this, but the devil's not playing around. Church, it's time that we stand up, 'cause I'm tired of being pushed around.
I will bless the Lord at all times. God's praise shall continually be in my mouth. Welcome to the Mission Revival here at Trinity United Church of Christ. Every year we have this Mission Revival. We focus on a social justice issue, and this year we are focusing on voting. Let me give you a little bit of information. In 2017, 500,000 people were kicked off of the voter rolls in Georgia. Stacey Abrams, when she ran for governor, lost the governor's race by 100,000 votes. When you have people who do not have your best interests at heart in positions like Secretary of State, Lieutenant Governor, the list goes on and on. We're always focused on the president, but it's these other positions that become incredibly important. And so we have been talking about voting here at Trinity, and that's what we're talking about here in this Mission Revival. And we are delighted that our Justice Watch team is doing incredible work here in the city. If you want to become a part of our Justice Watch team, please contact Trinity United Church of Christ. If you believe in justice and you believe that Jesus said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me to preach the good news to the poor, set at liberty the captives," this is the ministry for you. Tonight we are excited that we have Pastor William Lamar. He is the pastor of the Metropolitan AME Church in Washington, D.C. An historic congregation. This congregation was the home of Frederick Douglass. When you do tours in D.C., you have to go by Metropolitan. It's an amazing ministry. And Pastor Lamar has been at the forefront of social justice in the D.C. metro area. He has been raising issues of voter suppression. He has been on the front line around Black Lives Matter and dismantling mass incarceration. He is a leader in the AME Church, and I am delighted that he is preaching tonight here for our Mission Revival. So get ready. You are about to be blessed by none other than the pastor of the Metropolitan AME Church in Washington, D.C., Pastor William Lamar.
For faith to increase, you have earnestly, we fervently prayed. But you cannot find rest or be perfectly blessed till you're all on the altar is laid. Oh, is your all on the altar of sacrifice?
Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down and running over, shall the Lord give into your lap. We, the Village of Trinity, are committed to lifting up Christ, engaging our community, and celebrating our culture. Today, your gifts of tithes and offering will allow the work of Trinity to continue as we seek to provide ministry and resources to those who are incarcerated, ill, hungry, hurting, and whose backs are against the walls. There are multiple ways for you to support the ministry of Trinity with your tithes and offerings. You may give through our Secure Give application. You may also text to give by dialing 855-781-8384. You can also use our Cash App, $Trinity UCC, or use our website. With a few easy clicks, you will be well on your way to support this ministry. Also, our First Fruits Direct Draft program allows you to make your church a priority. And if you prefer to mail your gift, simply send your tithe or donation to 400 West 95th Street. Thank you for supporting Trinity United Church of Christ, the greatest church this side of the Jordan.
It is difficult to express my joy in being invited to share with the family of the Trinity United Church of Christ of Chicago. Allow me to say that before you all knew who I was, I knew who Trinity was. And since the late 80s, your ministry, under the leadership of Dr. Jeremiah Wright, formed me and allowed me to imagine that it was possible to be Black and Christian in America. I want to thank you for that ministry and for the ways that it has been wisely extended in the ministry of the Reverend Dr. Otis Moss. Dr. Moss is the person who continues to expand that legacy and to transform it in ways that meet with the needs of 21st century America and the 21st century world. Thank you, Dr. Moss, for the invitation, and may God continue to bless during this virtual mission revival the work of this wonderful and extraordinary church. Let us pray. Dear God, in the words of the poet James Weldon Johnson, shadow me in the hollow of your hand. Keep me out of gunshot of the devil. Watch me with hyssop. Pin my ear to the wisdom post. Make my words sledgehammers of truth. Put my eyes to the telescope of eternity. Turpentine my imagination and set my tongue on fire. In the name of the one who defeated death, we pray. Amen. I want to direct our attention to Exodus, the first chapter, beginning at the 9th verse. There you'll find recorded these words. He said to his people, look, the Israelite people are more numerous and more powerful than we. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, or they will increase, and in the event of war, join our enemies and fight against us and escape from the land. Therefore, they set taskmasters over them to oppress them with forced labor. They built supply cities, Pithom and Ramses for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread, so that the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites. The Egyptians became ruthless in imposing tasks on the Israelites and made their lives bitter with hard service in mortar and brick and in every kind of labor. They were ruthless in all the tasks that they imposed on them. The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was named Shiphrah, the other Puah, when you act as midwives to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it is a boy, kill him. But if it is a girl, she shall live. But the midwives feared God. They did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but they let the boys live. So the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this and allowed the boys to live?" The midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are vigorous and give birth before the midwife comes to them." So God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and became very strong. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families. The Pharaoh commanded his people, "Every boy that is born to the Hebrews you shall throw into the Nile, but you shall let every girl live." For a few moments, I like to preach from this thought: watch what you say. Watch what you say. There is not one among us who grew up in a Black household who did not hear a parent or a grandparent say to us in our mannish or womanish moments, "Watch your mouth. Watch what you say." And this phrase has always perplexed me because technically we cannot see words, but we hear them. But the entreaty from our elders was, "Watch what you say," because they knew that words, that language built realities. Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians that we are stewards of the mysteries of God. We do not own these mysteries. These mysteries do not begin or end in us, but we, you and me, all of us together are stewards of the mysteries of God. We ought to watch our mouths because we're not only stewards of God's invisible mysteries, but we are stewards of the language that God gives us, stewards of every word that is spoken. I just came back from some time in the mountains with my wife, and these majestic physical mysteries of God transported me and nourished me. I wondered if God walked through these spaces. I wondered if the divine footprints really caused mountains to leap forth and valleys to plummet downward, as James Weldon Johnson imagined. Or as scientists tell us, was it the smashing of the Earth's tectonic plates that gave birth to lofty mountains' grandeur? No matter the cause, we are stewards of these physical mysteries, stewards of these rhetorical mysteries. The mysteries are deeply connected to us, and we are deeply connected to the mysteries. The mysteries give meaning to us, and we give meaning to the mystery. Maybe you spent some time at the beach. You heard the ever-marching tide crash against the shore, the incoming waves making their own bass-heavy music. The song of the waves is older than time itself. When I hear the waves crashing against the shore, I think of our mothers and our fathers. This was the music of joy to them in their coastal enclaves along the continent. That music of joy became, for some of them, music of horror during their captivity, during the Ma'afa, during the macabre journey across the Middle Passage. We are stewards of these mysteries, of the physical mysteries, of the rhetorical and linguistic mysteries of God. They call our names. These mysteries know what we as a people have forgotten. These mysteries shape the destinies of our children and their children and their children. The physical mysteries of mountain and beach and wave. The rhetorical mystery of words spoken and the worlds that they create. The stewardship that is at the forefront of my imagination during this mission revival is the stewardship of words and language. Language creates our world, and if we are serious about mission, we've got to watch our mouths, watch what it is that we say. Language forms the borders of our imagination. I am convinced that we will never taste freedom if our language keeps us in chains. We will never know power if our language weakens us. We will never know God if our language sells us idols. in this moment for the Black church, not for the segment of the church that is owned by Imperial America, but for the Black church. I am highly concerned about our stewardship of language. Are we speaking words that will aid in the liberation of our people, of all of humanity? Are we speaking words that will build our power to break our chains? Are we speaking words that will bring us into the mystery of the divine life? In this day, when the most vulnerable are being sacrificed to viruses and to greed, in this day, when killers are celebrated by our elected leadership and warriors for freedom are criminalized, in this day, when the white supremacist violence that is America's mother and father is being wrapped in blankets of law and order and snuggled in the interest of authoritarian rule, in this day, when words are emptied of their true meaning and repackaged to sell as lies so deadly that they literally drip with the blood of our neighbors. What is the church saying? How are we called to steward language in the year 2020? We are days away from important elections. People are in the streets, challenges from within and without. What, Trinity, are we called to say? First, and let me be clear about this, we cannot be agents of the propagandist language of the state. We cannot say that this is a land of truth, because it is not. We cannot say that this is a land of freedom, because it is not. We cannot say that this is a land of laws and not of men and women, because it is not. We cannot say that this is a Christian nation. It was not, it is not, and upon these foundations, it never shall be. We cannot speak in our churches and in the hearing of our children and their children words that will have us looking in this place for something that we will never find. We cannot raise our children to believe that in this place, which has slapped us for centuries, we will be embraced and kissed when the morning comes. Harriet refused the propaganda. Ida B. refused the propaganda. Du Bois told us what this place was. Martin told us what this place was. Malcolm told us what this place was. Derek Bell told us what this place was. Why won't we believe those who loved us? Why do we insist on consuming and regurgitating the language of obfuscation and oppression? Beloved, this is a tall order, because it takes strong spiritual conviction to adopt the language, the rhetoric, the mysterious words that lead to true liberation. The language that God is free and intends for all humans to be free. The language that God is life and intends that each human being live abundantly. We are stewards of God's mystery, stewards of this language of reality, of hope, of perseverance and endurance. The text today gives us a window into how we got where we are. It allows us to share, if you will, an imperial ear hustle. The purpose of this sermon is not to debate what is factual. It is to lift up what is true in this text. Lovecraft Country, I know some of y'all are binge watching, it is not factual, but it is true. Beloved by Morrison is fiction, but it is true. What is true in Exodus is how emperors and empires and despots rule. The king says in verse 9, look at the Israelite people. They are more numerous and they will soon become more powerful than we. Listen, demographic anxiety, the politics of Trump, the politics of Boris Johnson, the politics of Brazil, demographic anxiety. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, or they will increase. It is a zero-sum game. If they lose, we win. If we win, they must lose. Never a thought to peace, cooperation, and sharing. They will increase, and in the event of war, they will join our enemy and fight against us. Look, they are more numerous. We have demographic anxiety, and maybe when they have power, they will treat us as we have treated them. Maybe when they have power, they will be consumed by a politics of retribution. But history tells us that whenever Black people were able to control politics and the political economy, we never visited violence or evil upon those who had visited violence and evil upon us. In South Carolina, that legislature during the period of Reconstruction with Black men in leadership, we made sure that all students in South Carolina were able to share the largesse of public education. No, the white leaders did not, but we did. In Wilmington, North Carolina, when they had a violent coup d'etat against the Black leaders of Wilmington, they were sharing the largesse of that region with all people. When we have been in power, we have not visited evil, but we have sought peace. We have sought to lead as human beings. But the visage of other people with power disturbed this king then, and the visage of other people with power disturbs the king and his sycophants today. It was too much for them to imagine that we who hold the sacred divine spark could lead in love. And so, because the numbers grew and the numbers grow, the politics of demographic anxiety lift up among us. They say there are too many of them in the streets, too many of them moving into our neighborhoods, destroying the suburbs, too many of them roaming around freely and willy-nilly in our nation. We must put them to work. We must commodify them. We must patrol their bodies. We must break them. But beloved, I find in this text a new rhetorical possibility, the possibility of new language at the intersection of this evil and God raising up these midwives, Shiphrah and Puah. And the text is clear that no matter how powerful the king was or is, they are not able to destroy us without our cooperation. The king needed to find Shiphrah and Puah in order to destroy those of us who were growing numerically, growing in influence and growing in power. What the king did was enlisted two life-giving midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, and he tried to change their language of life into the language of death. He wanted those who escorted new life into the world to also be those who would take life out of this world. As stewards of the language and the activity of God in the world, Shiphrah and Puah refused to be co-opted or seduced by death. The powerful wanted them to trade the life business for the death business, but they refused that language. They refused the imagination of death. They refused the command of the king. I need us to understand, no matter where we work in the Chicagoland area, in schools, in churches, in government, no matter where you work across the nation and around the world, in corporations, in law firms, wherever you find yourself, there are those who will want you to trade the language of life for the vocabulary of death. But as stewards of God's language, our mission is to always say no and act no when death is presented to us as an option. As stewards of God's language, we know that our children are devalued. Even as in the text it says to kill the boys and spare the girls. We know that our parents were aware of this, which is why even just in my parents' generation, they were told not to go to that side of town, not to go to that store, not to hang around that school, not to go to that neighborhood, because they knew that the hellhounds of death were always on our trail. We see it every night in Kenosha. We see it every night across this nation, the hellhounds of death on the heels of our people. But we must never capitulate to become agents of that language and politics of death. These midwives show us that the language of no to death is the language of yes to life, leads to the politics of ensuring that we are non-cooperative to the empire and the king's death sentence. Shifra and Pua use a different vocabulary. They use God's words of truth with a tinge of protective deception. They say that by the time we get to the birth stool, these Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are strong. By the time we knock on the door, by the time we ring the doorbell, they have already given birth to the children. These people are strong. These mothers are strong. They are vigorous. Shifra and Pua use not only the language of life in the midst of the vocabulary of death, they use the language of strength when weakness is perceived by the powers. This is our vocabulary. This is our language for the moment. This is our mission, Trinity. And brothers and sisters around the world, they have tried every trick, but we're still here because we're strong. Our children are here because we are strong. Our churches are here because we are strong. Our families have survived because we are strong. Every game, every gimmick, every demonic plot has been thwarted because we are strong and we are still standing. You tried and failed because we are strong. And our language is never the language of weakness, but the language of strength. You cannot kill all of us. You cannot buy us. We will not be co-opted. We are strong. We speak the language of life in the midst of death. That is our mission. Those are our politics. We speak the language of strength in the midst of weakness. That is our language. Those are our politics. We are being sought and hunted, not because we are weak, but because we are strong. And finally, our language must be that our loyalty is not to emperors or to empires. Our loyalty is not to despotic fascist leaders. Our loyalty is not to the institutions that support them. The text says that God dealt well with the midwives as stewards of God's mysteries, stewards of words that can free our minds and our bodies. Our song must be, I want God to deal well with me. We want God to deal well with us. We speak the language of life, not death, the language of strength, not weakness. We want God to deal well with us. We ultimately are seeking to be approved by God and the ancestors who came before us. Because Shifra and Pua were not frightened by Pharaoh. Because Shifra and Pua spoke life amidst death. Because they spoke strength amid weakness. They were dealt with well by the God who made them. There are too many of us who want accolades from the wrong people, from the wrong institutions, from agents of disease and death and crucifixion. We don't want your applause. We want God to deal well with us. Our ancestors, they told us, but we didn't listen. We were too busy singing other people's songs and dancing to other people's music, laughing at stuff that wasn't funny, scratching our heads and bowing our necks to notice the beauty in our songs and the holiness in our music. They prayed it and they sang it at St. Paul AME Church in Macon, Georgia, which nurtured me. And as a little boy, I would ear hustle and I would hear them pray at St. Paul AME Church. I heard them praying on Sunday and fighting for life, fighting to stay strong, fighting to win God's approval every other day of the week. I heard my grandfather when he knelt down and prayed, when he said we were like empty pitchers before a full fountain. I heard him praying and speaking life, speaking strength, and seeking God's approval all of the rest of their life. I rode my red Western Flyer bicycle from Western Auto to my Aunt Dot's house and to Sweet Mama's house. And I heard them praying every day at noon, words of life, words of strength, seeking the approval of God. I heard them become stewards of the language that freed me and can free us all, the language of life, the language of strength, the language of God dealing well with us. Our mission is to be stewards of this language in this day. Watch what you say, because at the end of our lives, when our journeys are over, when we have fought for life, when we have fought for our strength, when we have fought for God's approval, I heard them say, I want to hear God's welcome voice telling me, well done. Those who speak life in this era of death, those who speak strength in this era of perceived weakness, those who seek for God to approve and deal well with them. These are they who will hear God saying, well done. And our children will celebrate this language and these stewards of God's spoken mission. So may it be for us. So may it be for generations unborn. God bless.
Man, his name is William Lamar, and he is the pastor of the Metropolitan AME Church in Washington, D.C. This brother is brilliant. Thank you for this message tonight. We needed this. You have allowed us to be inspired, to reflect, to think, and to want to go deeper in the Word of God. Man, brother, you are gifted. Thank you so much for visiting Trinity virtually. I cannot wait till the pandemic is over. You are coming here in person, and there are some people right now in the stream. You all want to hear Pastor Lamar again? Go ahead and put it down in the stream. And so we thank you, brother, for being with us. You certainly blessed us. As I've been saying all this week, you'll hear it more, we're talking about voting. Coming up on the screen right now, information about the Black Church PAC and information about the NAACP. Our offering is going to support voter registration efforts in battleground states. So the information you see here, these are the organizations we're going to be supporting. We also invite you to get on their newsletter so that you can receive information about voter protection, about how you can join the fight against voter suppression. Black Church Fund, Black Church PAC, they're connected to each other, and the NAACP. Two great, solid organizations that we want to be able to support during this mission revival, because we want to make sure that every single vote is counted and no one is left behind. Thank you for being with us for our mission revival. We're not done. I'm not going to have the benediction right now. I'll have it tomorrow. That's our last night. I want to say thank you to our Justice Watch team and the prayer meeting. You all did it once again. We appreciate the great work that you're doing. May God bless you. May God keep you. And make sure you call your cousins, your friends in Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, and Texas. Those are the states we're focusing on where they're trying to suppress votes. Make sure you touch base with your family and your friends and let them know We're going to make sure that every vote counts because black votes matter. God bless you and God keep you. We'll see you tomorrow night at Revival.
This is a call to action.
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 Our right to vote is under siege.
Voter suppression is on the rise in our nation, especially in states with large black populations.
Register to vote. Call your election office and find out your polling location. Demand your pastor, your rabbi, your imam,
Or even Big Mama, Make announcements to your community about voter registration and polling location.
Vote in person if possible.
Drop off absentee ballots at an approved drop-off location.
If you must absentee vote by mail, make sure the Postal Service in your area will guarantee delivery so your vote will be counted.
This is a call to action.
Black churches across the nation are organizing to make sure that every vote is counted.
And that no one is denied the right to vote.
This commercial was sponsored by the Black Church Fund, the Illinois Coalition of Faith Leaders for Voting Rights, and the Unashamed Media Group.